He was by far the best player on the floor.
Oh my
it wasn't
God.
even close. Overarching thoughts now that this game just ended that we just watched.
Well, the Celtics won this game off of 2 runs. The 15-2 run at the end of the first quarter, and then the 14-2 run at the end of the third quarter when the Mavericks cut it to 8 points. Mazzulla calls a timeout with 4:27 to go in the third quarter, and then they go scoring 14-2 to finish the quarter, and then they just win the game. So I think those 2 runs won it for Boston in the game. In terms of overarching thoughts here, like what does game 1 mean for game 2 and the rest of the series? I think Dallas, we saw a lot of what we talked about ahead of the series in that they were unable to find Gafford and Lively for any lobs. Boston did an amazing job with their switching defense and their size inside, helping inside, preventing any lobs at the rim. They took a central source of Dallas's offense away from them. And I think that removed a lot of the shot quality that we saw the Mavericks get in all 3 of their series in the Western Conference playoffs on the way to the finals here. Whereas Boston, it felt like, over half of their shots were from 3. They got a lot of good quality shots. It felt like everything was tough for Dallas. And granted, things might feel a little different if Kyrie hits some open threes. He had 3 or 4 open 3-pointers that he bricked. If Lively doesn't have such a terrible game with some cheap fouls and the pivot foot, the travel that he had. I mean, like it looked like early season Duke Lively. Maybe it's different, but it felt like game 1, things were just easier for Boston on the offensive end, a lot more than it was for Dallas. And I think the people who picked Boston in the series, that's a lot of what they anticipated with the Celtics' versatility on defense.
Well, and I think one of the things that ran through my mind in watching that first run that you were talking about, because it was just this barrage of shots, I actually thought they were up by 17, and I know they shot a freaky percentage, but the amount of open shots that they were generating and open threes that they were taking, they took 20 threes in the first 17 minutes of that game. How many of those
threes? They had 7 threes in the first 3 minutes of the game.
I mean, how many of those
crazy.
did they even I get it that, Dallas is closing out and, you're still not supposed to make that high of a percentage at game speed, but they were on fire. I thought it even could have been even bigger with the shots that they were creating for themselves. And then the biggest thing, which is we did a lot of analysis about this. We talked about how having that amount of time leads to paralysis by analysis. And one of the great unknowns and one of my great questions coming in was, I don't trust the Porzingis thing. Now, this is one game. It's not a 1-game series. It's a 7-game series. And so we will see. But
amazing.
I mean, I gotta look.
Yeah, he was sensational.
I mean, this is not not only was it not feel your way back into things, he was by far the best player on the floor.
Oh my God.
It wasn't even close. And I was like, okay, this is how you can fall into the Boston thing. We just watched them play depleted teams, and it wasn't like they ran them off the floor. They were playing in close games against teams that we didn't necessarily think that they should be playing a bunch of close games with. And you wondered, is this what they are without Porzingis? Are they just playing to their level of competition? What is it? But it had been so long since we had seen that team with Porzingis, and then when he comes back, and then that is a better Porzingis than we ever even saw him be during the year. Those performances are few and far between where he's by far the best player on the floor, and he is deterring everything at the rim on one end, and he's knocking down every shot on the other end. And it was my God. You start to remember, oh, yeah, this is the reason they won 60-something games, because this guy brings a whole nother problem to the table. And I know you've been big on all season saying he's the one that unlocks that thing. Man, you just watch that first 12 minutes of that game, you would think that's the best player on earth.
Yeah, you could watch the first 12 minutes, or you could just watch the last 3 minutes of the first quarter.
Yeah.
Because he had like two sequences during that amazing Celtics 15-2 run where he altered a shot at the rim once on defense on one of them, and then he got a switch against a smaller guy at the elbow, and he just shot over him. I think it was Josh Green. And then like 30 seconds later or a minute later, he hits an above the break three, like an early offense for Boston. And then back on defense, he blocks Kyrie Irving. A pull-up by Kyrie, of all people. He blocks the shot, outlets the ball, and then that's when Sam Hauser hit the crazy corner three-pointer, and the Celtics, TD Garden crowd just absolutely exploded. But Porzingis had two sequences on defense and offense where it was just like, okay, this guy looks like the best player on the floor right now. And I thought Porzingis' effect was in full display for Boston in that first quarter and really throughout the game, and he looks like the X factor. But not just like the X factor, but potentially a guy that like those finals MVP odds should move a little up for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was well, and look, they will obviously have different challenges for him. That's the fun of a series, is that now Dallas will inevitably come out looking much different for the next game. In fact, they came out looking much different in that second half. And
second quarter even. I mean, like really right away.
Then they kind of let go of the rope when they were trying to come back in the second quarter. And then Luka hit that late three, which gave them, at least it gives you a little hope. And it's like, hey, maybe they could make a game out of this. Came out in the second half and they played great. Meanwhile, Boston it reminded me of once upon a time.
27? Is that where you're going to go?
No,
27
just
right
once
now?
upon a time, a football coach told me, he was like, once your team turns it off, it is hard as hell to get them to turn it back on. And and it's hard. They were bludgeoning them. They're looking up at the scoreboard. They're up by 29 in this game. And it is hard to maintain the level of intensity that got you up 29. So I'm not going to fault them that badly. But there's certainly, you could watch, as you mentioned, the last 6 minutes of the first quarter, and that is the absolute best of the Celtics. Defense, offense, devastating, both ends. You could watch the first 6 minutes of the third quarter, and that's the worst of the Celtics. Like, we did see both within the context of the game. Couple overarching things.
Yeah. I think with that first 6 minutes of the third quarter, Chris, I know Dallas got it to 8, but I almost feel like they could have done it a little sooner in the quarter. Like that, the beginning of that third quarter when Boston was so ice cold on offense, Dallas was missing a lot of shots early in the quarter, and then eventually they got it to 8. But I felt like even when they got it to 8, I'm like, this should be even closer. Like if Kyrie just hit some of these open threes, and then obviously like he misses another open three at the end of the quarter. Lively has the travel, and a number of mistakes for Dallas helps Boston. In addition to Boston's effort, like they did turn it back on.
Oh, Jaylen Brown turned it back on.
Jaylen Brown, dude, the block. Did you see the double block play? Jaylen Brown prevented a lob to Derrick Jones Jr. at the rim. And then later in the same possession, he rotates over and blocks Derrick Jones Jr. dunk attempt at the rim. It looked like a Draymond Green type of defensive versatility, just protecting the rim as kind of a small, quote unquote, smaller guy. I don't know. It was amazing. It was incredible.
Yes. Jaylen Brown, I thought there was that segment when Dallas started to cut it and it got to 8 and it ballooned back up and they went on that 11-0 run. That felt that Jaylen Brown spurned that on.
Fueled. He was like, no. He's like, no chance.